What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, and back with some more J-drama score. And we're going back to perhaps the score that I've listened to the most tunes from in this reaction setting, which is to say Okitegami Kyoko's Memorandum, a show from 2015, one of my all-time favorites, combines detective vibes with comedy, a whole lot of comedy, as well as romance and some drama, so I just think it's a perfect synthesis of a number of different subgenres of television, and when I first watched it, it moved me deeply in multiple episodes and has continued to do that as I've rewatched it. Indeed, if you didn't know, I've done an entire watch-along for it on my Patreon, so I'll put the link to the collection on my Patreon for that watch-along in the description here. And I will say, this soundtrack has a number of very long track titles which contain like different phrases, and some of the phrases like I woke up strong or wake up strong, they show up in different tracks. So recently, when I was making sure that I hadn't already reacted to something, and in fact one of the tracks that I thought, oh, I should react to that, I realized I had already reacted to it. That confusion is partially because of the complex and long titles on the soundtrack. Nevertheless, it is a soundtrack composed by two different people, Megumi Sasano, or Sasano Megumi, and Suehiro Kenichiro, and in fact, the latter is the composer of this tune. And I think both tracks, or both composers, utilize some of the same motifs. Clearly, they develop some of the musical ideas together, but I would say their two different set of tracks do have a slightly different flavor. But yeah, we're going to listen to a track that I suppose, as I learned, depending on whether you copy and put it into a translator from the kanji or from romaji, and romaji is Japanese language written in the Latin alphabet, you get a slightly different explanation as to what the translation is, but it essentially means to hide the tree, go into the forest. Now, the other way that it translates is to hide a life, go into the forest, so I suppose the tree one makes a little more sense as a metaphor, but also a tree is a living thing, and the idea of, hiding something that's alive and worth knowing, which, could also be seen as a truth in a detective story, you go put it among things that look similar so it doesn't stand out. Nevertheless, it's a track which very much conveys a detective investigation ongoing. It has that, it's a bit unclear, like what's happening, we're maybe figuring some things out, but we still haven't honed in on the specific and exact truth. So that feeling comes through, but there's also a bit of an emotional weight to it, which I think speaks to the emotional gravity of a number of the episodes. And again, even though it's a show infused with a whole lot of comedy, pretty much by the end of every episode, there's at least some emotional connotations, whether it's from the person who committed the crime, the victim of the crime, Kyoko herself, played by Aragaki Wii, or just any of the other characters in the show, Yakusuke, played by Okada Matsuda, I think? Yeah, I think that's his name. But yes, ultimately, a lot of the episodes, or all the episodes, have some emotional characters. So over the course of this track, I think you get both that mystery and emotion. So let's give it a listen. This is from Okitegami Kyoko's Memorandum 2015, a track by Suehiro Kenichiro, and it's called, I think, in translation, To Hide the Tree, Go into the Forest. love it. Again, it's indicative of some of the more serious moments in the individual cases, and in some respects in relation to Kyoko on a daily level, unraveling who she is and where she's come from and why she's in the place she's in, which, just a quick explanation, it's a detective show with comedy and romance, and also just a bit of like sci-fi, in the sense that she has a memory condition where every memory she has past a certain point can't be formed anew, meaning like every time she wakes up, she can only remember some deeper memories about herself, and anything that's happened recently is gone again. So she has to figure out who she is and what she's doing every day. So it's kind of like if you took the movie Memento and then a little bit of 50 First Dates, like not so much the latter, but just a little bit, because the other main character, Yakusuke, is smitten with Kyoko, but every day he has to introduce himself anew to her, so there's a bit of that flavor as well. But yeah, so there's a personal way in which a track like this is relevant as the episodes go along in regard to Kyoko, but still, mainly I think it's used in relation to the solving of the cases. And as I said, you can hear the mystery, the uncertainty, but also the emotional weight and gravity, the interpersonal gravity of the individual cases and a lot of the sonics. I like how there's a number of elements that are sort of percussive and melodic. They, sound like bells or like chimes being struck, so they have a percussive rhythmic quality, but they're also melodic. It's not just like hitting a snare drum or something. So I like those elements. Obviously, the cello features prominently, especially in the latter half of the tune in that one section, but also some very elegant violin work. So again, I think it's very representative of the quality on this soundtrack, so shout out to Suehiro Kenichiro, as well as to Sasano Megumi, as well as the incredible show itself. As I said, if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and check it out. Maybe, if you can't find it anywhere else, in the watch-along, which, as I said, I'll put a link to the watch-along collection for this show on my Patreon in the description here. Let me know what you think, and Luca and I will see you next time. Peace.